So hi, my name is Patrick Weber from the Ministry of Digitalization here in Luxembourg, and today I wanted to give you a quick case study, really, of how with Luxembourg State we're using an open standard matrix for messaging service. So a quick background on myself and the ministry. There's a new ministry. We've been founded 5 years ago, and we're trying to push forward the Luxembourg public sector into the age of digitalization. Yeah. That's a relatively recent thing. Obviously, before there was also digitalization, but not in the shape of a dedicated ministry. My work at the ministry is concerned about what we call, in general, new technologies, but my background is also been involved in what I would call open projects, like open data, OpenStreetMap, geographic information, and so on. So me personally, I have predilection for open projects and open code and open standards, I would say. And we try and do that in different domains like data, in artificial intelligence, even in public blockchain projects. To go on, I found this. Can you try and make it at least so you can see the whole page?
Up left, up left, view, up left,
This?
up, more up. The menu.
Yeah, let me try this.
The menu bar.
Can I try this?
First line, view, up. Yeah.
This one?
No, the second one.
Oh, there. Ah, better. Okay, thank you. As you can see, we're not Linux users yet on the desktop at the ministry. We're still very much a Microsoft shop in that sense. So I'll take you back to 2020, and I think everyone knows what happened in 2020. There was this major global pandemic, meaning overnight, basically, we had to transition to remote working. Online collaboration became very important suddenly. And there was an emergency to be able to collaborate online and remotely. And I found this nice hierarchy of messaging that kind of shows that at the bottom you have low important stuff like spam, notifications, so on, that on your mobile devices you receive through SMS and other means, which we're not interested in. You have then private and informal communications that we all have, and for the general public, I think not for the public here in this room probably, because we're all open source and experts, but the general public relies on things like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, or all kinds of different platforms, commercial, worldwide platforms, for instant messaging, for communication with family members, with friends, in the private life of clubs and so on. Then you have the official and informal communication that you do in your workplace. And as I said, with COVID, there was not really, the public sector in Luxembourg didn't have a dedicated platform that allowed to enable this efficient communication, remote and collaboration in 2020. But what happened? And above that, there's really important stuff like contracts and so on that gets distributed as documents through emails, through PDFs and so on. But what happened was that suddenly, also in the public sector in work, there was a lot of shadow IT services, and people were using things like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, all kinds of different instant messaging platforms to collaborate remotely. And this led at the Luxembourg State for the realization that we don't have a service offer to give our civil servants and public sector the necessary tools and means to collaborate efficiently online and communicate online. So to alleviate that, we had to define and develop a new service that would allow this. And that's how the Luxchat4Gov and later on Luxchat for the general public projects came along. And I'll tell you more about these projects now. So we had a working group trying to find what this messaging service that should enable every actor in the public sector to be able to communicate efficiently and in the same interface as they're used to, like in WhatsApp and all these different platforms, but in a more sovereign and secure way. So to protect sensitive information so it doesn't leave the borders of Luxembourg, and facilitate this real-time communication and collaboration across different government entities. So digital sovereignty was a big buzzword, saying a national, interoperable and secure solution hosted in Luxembourg, end-to-end encrypted, and having also out-of-band communication, meaning that we also had, in the last years, problems with cyber attacks. That means that sometimes systems, internal systems of the state servers, networks, could become unavailable. So the idea was also to offer it as an out-of-band solution to be able to have a fallback for communication in such emergencies. We did a little market research, pilot project, and we discovered that there's this protocol called Matrix, which offers a lot of these attributes that we're looking for. So Matrix, I think, again, I'm talking here to preaching to converted, but it's an instant messaging protocol that's end-to-end encrypted, that's federated, that's secure, and that allows a real-time communication and collaboration. And it's open source. There's an ecosystem of different providers of server and client software, and all kinds of different tools. And it's used more and more. Back in 2020, obviously there was less users than now, but I was at the Matrix conference a couple of weeks ago where they announced that they're quite confident about 160 million federated public users in the Matrix network worldwide. So adoption is going up. And back then we already knew about different projects in the public sector. CHAP from the French DINUM is one of the most famous ones, and longest running one. So we inspired ourselves from this example as well. There's Germany with the Bundeswehr Messenger. Also in Germany there's a big project for this TI Messenger, which is a standard for communication in the health sector, which is very interesting. In the Swiss they have now a project for doing e-post app for communication that's highly trusted. And as I said, I was at a conference 2 weeks ago from Matrix in Berlin, and I met many different public sector actors there that are either doing pilot projects or already doing implementations. In Sweden, in Belgium, and also in the defense sector. So NATO, for example, has an innovation lab and where they also experiment with Matrix as a communication standard. So there is a dynamic ecosystem, and I think Matrix as a standard and as an ecosystem is the right choice for such messenger in the public sector. So as I said, we had a pilot project in 2020 where we had a working group of different actors, the police, civil protection services, and Ministry of Interior and other actors. We did a pilot project together with them to set up a test service to see how this would work in terms of a chat solution based on the Matrix protocol and the element code base. That's well known. So that was a quick 6 months project. We did it together with a private partner here in Luxembourg, Luxchat4Gov, that helped us implement and run the service. And the pilot project was successful in the sense that we found that there was no big blockers for deploying such a service. So now, today, the Matrix-based instant messaging solution called Luxchat4Gov is available for all of the central public state sector. So that means all the ministries and administrations here in Luxembourg. We launched last year officially in May 23. We have a target population of around 40,000 staff in the public sector till now. Of these, we've reached about 9,000 that have registered an account on the service. And as I said, it's based on the Matrix protocol and the Synapse and Element client base. The Synapse server base and Element client base. As I said, I don't go into detail, but all the normal messaging services are available. And we tried to really strip out of the element code base all services that rely on external data, be it for example, one example is the geolocation service, which relies on OpenStreetMap and so on. We replaced by the local national geoportal kind of geolocation service, so that even that data doesn't leave the country. It's linked in with the authentication, the single sign-on of the Luxembourg state sector, and we're quite lucky that we have a unified single sign-on for the whole of the public sector in Luxembourg, or most of the public sector in Luxembourg. I think in France, Germany, there's a different scale, and they also have obviously not a single sign-on for the whole of the French state and so on. That's adopted very widely. So we're quite lucky in Luxembourg, because we're smaller, that we have this. And it's the service that's running in Luxembourg data centers, redundant across 2 data centers. So to assure the reliability and security of the data. As I said, it's end-to-end encrypted. I won't go into the details of this. I think everyone here knows that all the data is encrypted from the moment it leaves the device to the moment where it's delivered for the recipient, so that no one can, not even us as a state, can decrypt all the data, the messages that go between the clients. And it has all the usual functionality again. So I said I'm not going to go too much into detail, but we offer clients for all the platforms, iOS, Android, web client, FAT client, and the usual features that come with matrix clients, like account synchronization, so you can have multiple devices, and all the messages are synced between the devices, no problem. It's not linked to a phone number, but linked to the single sign-on of the Luxembourg state, with a strong authentication and identification of the users. And we have the normal one-to-one video calling. One of the most frequent requests from people is, do you support like proper video conferencing? And unfortunately, we don't do yet because as well Element doesn't support that yet, but it's coming. So what's next for Luxchat4Gov? So we now have about 9,000 users, and we are running a project now with the education sector in Luxembourg. So that's where in the first phase we will enable all the staff in the Luxembourg education sector to use matrix communication for coordination in different schools, high schools, and other institutions. And in the second phase, this will also be possible to have rooms for each class where then the parents can participate. And this is where Luxchat for the general public comes in. This is, in fact, a separate project relying on a similar infrastructure as Luxchat4Gov, but it's a service that's offered by the private sector for anyone in Luxembourg, so the general public, who can create an account through an authentication system called LuxID, which is also a new project by different private actor players in Luxembourg. And this allows anyone who has, at the moment, a Luxembourgish phone number, but to register an account on this Luxchat general public system and use that to chat. And this will unlock many use cases in the business-to-customer space, for example, private companies in Luxembourg, big supermarkets, for example, or that can then enable communication with their customers, for example, and also government-to-citizen use cases, where in the future we could imagine then the government or public sector communicating with private individuals and vice versa. And one example will be that we'll have this communication between teachers and parents per classroom to enable communication. At the moment, I have 2 kids, and I have between the 2 kids, I have like 5 or 6 WhatsApp groups for different classes and different activities in school. So just because, again, there's no equivalent system in Luxembourg, and that's what we're trying to achieve here, also in the education sector. We've got the education sector on board here. So I can go just a bit more detail here about the federation. So we have different home servers and different bubbles, let's put it that way, between the different systems. We have Luxchat for government, which is one bubble with different home servers. For example, the police, they have a separate home server because they wanted to have more control over the data they share. And for example, the police, every policeman or policewoman has now a mobile, and where they can use or have to use Luxchat4Gov for the communication, instant communication. And that's a home server, separate home server, but it's all federated in this bubble, so everyone can communicate with everyone else. Then we have federation with the Luxchat general public bubble, which again is an ecosystem of different federated home server providers from the private sector, where they each provide federate between each other. But for example, the user search doesn't work both ways. So a Luxchat general public user on Luxchat general public service can't find in the search a Luxchat4Gov user. They have to know the exact ID of the Luxchat4Gov user to be able to communicate with them, but then it's possible. For example, the police, they didn't want this, so for the police they can't federate, they don't federate. The police server doesn't federate with the Luxchat server. And then in the future there will be hopefully also then bridges towards the general public, the general matrix network, worldwide network. So the idea is that we have in Luxembourg an ecosystem of different providers that run servers and that can all federate with each other, so that we can unlock all of these use cases. And this is all based on even on open standards and open software. And my last point was I wanted just to have a few reflections on funding for open source projects in the public sector. And I think this is not an easy problem, at least in Luxembourg. So the existing kind of funding procurement frameworks on how you can finance software projects are not really adapted or thought for open source projects. So procurement, when we write a tender for procurement and so on, it's always about delivering a service or buying a piece of software or buying some hardware. And we still struggle with just funding open source projects in general. And when we do funding, it has to be for features that are delivered, and just general code maintenance already is much more difficult to justify. And how do you support an open source community if there's no measurable, tangible kind of service that is delivered for the support? So this is just to say that we still struggle, at least here in Luxembourg, with how to fund open source projects and open source ecosystems. And also the Matrix ecosystem still has some immaturity in the sense that there's one dominant player that is driving the standard forward and selling their services or their software value-added services. And there has to be a balance between just financing that one player or putting the money where there's to grow a more diverse ecosystem, which is more healthy because it's more robust with different players. And how to coordinate then investment between all of these independent partners to drive the whole standard and the whole code base forward to better quality and more features. So these are for me, at least, still open questions that we're trying to find answers to, or what we can do to best support this. So thank you very much. This was all I had to say to it. If